November 2018, the Camp Fire of Butte County. 86 people who lost their lives. 86 people who will no longer be able to share a meal with a loved one, sing along to the radio, smile, not to mention the tens of thousands of people displaced as a result of the loss of 18,804 structures. These were more than just buildings. These were places of comfort, of fulfillment, full of memories worth more than the billions of dollars required to restore what was lost.
Now, while I'm sure we all don't spend our weekends tossing lit matches into the brush, our daily routines aren't sustainable, and the earth is warming at an alarming rate because of them. Anything from driving your car to school or work solo, to the ever-present meat in your diet, to just the plastic straws you use to drink, everything is contributing to this worldwide epidemic.
These privileges that we rely on and take for granted in our modern world emit greenhouse gases that trap heat in the atmosphere. Consequently, temperatures are rising, which leads to more evaporation that dries out vegetation and the ground. This allows fires to spread more quickly and makes containment difficult, nearly impossible, by increasing its capacity to kill and destroy. Not to mention, the fire's release of millions of tons of carbon only further exacerbates this issue.
I don't think you're hearing anything particularly new or life-changing. The vast majority of us are familiar with climate change. We've all seen the lone polar bear on an ice cap, a horrific glimpse into our future if we don't get our act together. But if we're aware of both the detrimental effects of climate change and its causes, why do we continue to choose unsustainable options, knowing the ramifications of our decisions? Why wasn't hearing about the death and destruction from the recent fires enough to change our behavior? When we heard the news of outbreak of fire, we thought, another one? Already? Though our lives were disrupted, events were canceled, the smell of smoke permeated our homes, our lives continued. We moved on.
Well, maybe it was because it didn't resonate with us, although Paradise, California is only 180 miles or a 3-hour drive from here. Having become desensitized to tragedy after seeing it in the news every day, the fires and the sense of urgency to preserve the environment and the planet we live on faded from memory after a few weeks. But what if the effects of climate change were personal?
We inherited our love for nature from our 8th grade teacher, Mr. Glock. Sharing his passion for the environment with us, he took our class on 2 separate 5-day trips to Yosemite and Lassen, filled with conventional tent camping, scenic hikes, and stargazing, all umbrellaed under the term outdoor education. Instead of learning about the environment, confined in a classroom, we were actually outside in nature, able to feel the sun on our backs and touch icy waterfalls, rather than just seeing them in pictures.
Our teacher was successful in passing his adoration down to us, but it was our own experiences that truly left us with our new perspective. Though we were all individually affected by the trip, in the end, we all left with a shared love for the earth and the understanding that the concept of outdoor education was more than just camping. It was about making nature personal.
So that's why we brought members of our Moreau community down to Mount Lassen this past summer. We wanted to expose them to the same nature that we saw in 8th grade and just show them the beauty that nature holds and how it's enduring but not invulnerable. We wanted them to have a personal stake in the Earth's well-being and kind of just urge them to protect the Earth in any way they can.
Each day of the trip, we did something to get ourselves and others closer to nature. Some days, this meant hiking up the side of what remains of a long dormant volcano, while others meant relaxing and taking in our surroundings at a slower pace. We wanted to immerse our participants in nature. We wanted them to remember every single detail of the setting they found themselves in. Our goal was to show our participants the scale of the thing that they would become responsible for and instill on them a sense of urgency in which we need to treat an issue like climate change.
Mount Lassen stands at an incredible 10,463 feet. Words and pictures don't really do justice to the size and beauty of that mountain. Awesome is a word that tends to be overused, but being on top of something that much bigger than yourself really inspires awe. From the sides, you can see vast snowbanks blanketing the mountain. From the top, you see Mount Shasta, the entire park, everything before the horizon. But the real beauty of the mountain is in the fact that it provides a habitat for animals that you wouldn't often see anywhere else on the planet.
So, for example, the American pika, or Mount Lassen National Park, has one of the largest populations of American pika in California and the Sierra Nevada mountains as a whole. The American pika only keeps its body temperature a couple degrees under the lethal levels, so they need to find a cold place to live, which makes Mount Lassen an ideal habitat for them. But with global temperatures rising, they're being forced higher and higher up the mountains, and they're running out of habitat quickly, which means they'll become an endangered species not long after an extinct species because of the indifference that we have towards climate change that we caused.
The point in bringing up a dying piece of the environment that Mount Lassen supports, and by extension, an ecosystem that the planet supports, is to show the fragility of it all. Being surrounded by redwoods as wide as the Sudan and taller than most three-story buildings and incomparably large mountains makes you feel powerless and in complete awe at the thing that young people like us are going to be responsible for protecting.
These delicate ecosystems provide a stark contrast to the formidable natural monuments. For the pika, an increase in temperature means the very few degrees between life and death. And anyone who's taken a biology course knows how one missing link in the food chain means the very difference between ecological prosperity and complete collapse. And for us, it's a few parts per million between breathable and toxic air, or the increase in death and destruction because of more frequent and more dangerous natural disasters. But what's really at risk is
So what's really at risk is what really makes the Earth special, the life that it sustains and the beauty that that life creates. And we're a part of that. So the Earth is our home and we only get the one, so make sure we preserve it and keep it safe as long as we can, for ourselves and even for future generations.
So let's inspire others to care for our planet by making nature personal for them.
go outside with your family and friends.
Climb a mountain with them and go see the view at the top.
Visit your local regional parks, state parks, and national parks.
Immerse yourself in unfathomable beauty.
Educate your friends and family and the people around you about how fragile the Earth is and how we need to protect it.
Watch the sky become painted with streaks of color as the sun rises.
Take a moment to stop and smell the flowers.
Just make memories out there.
We should be able to fondly reminisce about our experiences and connect them to the settings in which they took place.
Because it will serve as a reminder of what's at risk and encourage us to actually make changes to our lifestyle in an effort to save the planet.
So just like the fires in Paradise, California released millions of tons of carbon into the atmosphere, you can reduce your own emissions into the atmosphere and try and prevent that same thing from happening again.
By reducing our carbon emissions, we decrease the chances of another natural disaster from occurring and diminish its strength.
And by doing that, we save lives. Thank you.